Hello, Dota 2 fans, and welcome to another edition of SLTV ProSeries Season 11. This is your Grand Finals London Conspiracy Fighters! Scary faces, and thank you for joining us. We are HeflaTV, your English coverage. I am MRP, your resident Canadian Dota 2 caster, joined by none other than Mr. Blackadder himself. Black, what's the forecast for this matchup?
I'm hoping for a lot of carnage, but I think first we're going to have to pull you down off the ceiling. I think that's going to have to be a must, but either way, London Conspiracy up against Scary Faces, yeah. I'm hoping for aggressive style of gameplay. I'm always hoping for aggressive style of gameplay, and we start out with some unique bans, I'll say it that way. We've got a ban out on the Lycan, which are a little bit more unusual than 6.83, and a ban out on the Omni, which I did not see coming a mile away.
Yeah, LC a team I should say that does run Lycan here and there, some perhaps somewhat of a respect ban from Scary Faces. Definitely, as you mentioned, Scary Faces is one of the teams, at least in the last few series, that have run a very aggressive style of Dota. They run this Pudge Lina support combo on Eknart and Abash respectively, and they've been pretty damn successful doing it. But London Conspiracy, through the group stage and the playoffs, have run over quite a few teams, so don't know if Scary Faces is willing to run something that risky, especially being that LC do have that game one winners bracket advantage.
I'm wondering how much of a psychological effect that one game lead does give London Conspiracy up against Scary Faces. I mean, it's something to always keep in mind. I mean, I know some people really hate that kind of winners bracket advantage in tournament play because it does in some way affect the viewing of a tournament, but in this case, well, I'm just wondering if Scary Faces are going to play more reserved because that deficit that they have.
Yeah, I definitely would have to agree that that'll probably be the path that they take. Of course, I mean, some of these more aggressive drafts are things they are comfortable with, so perhaps they stick with their bread and butter. But I do have to agree that there's some mental aspect of trepidation from their part to go a little bit too far outside of the box, and they'll probably stay with something a little more comfortable here. LC will ban out that Brewmaster away from Stake 21, but he's got a pretty wide hero pool in the mid, so Scary Face is probably not too worried about that ban, albeit removing a strong team fight hero from the pool nonetheless.
This is something I've actually been weighing up with both Grandis and Mike Morris. The effectiveness of the Brewmaster after his various nerfs. Does it still need that tier 1 pick and ban in the first phase? Because part of me thinks the nerf was quite strong and that it's not really a necessary thing anymore. He can do a lot of damage in a team fight, but up against things like the Viper in this case, or say, well, Ogre did get nerfed, but Ogre's up there in the bans. You could say you could ban a Tide Hunter, considering his AoE capabilities and offlane viability. But in this case, there's also the Troll Warlord, and I've seen a lot of Troll Warlord in the last 3 days alone, mainly when I've been casting the DAC. Troll is scary enough, and so I think that's a worthwhile ban from Scary Faces, but the Brewmaster, I'm not too sure about.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you that he's still a strong hero, but you can easily draft around him. You mentioned the Viper being somewhat of a counter pick in the sense that he's just difficult to bring down, and the Brewlings don't do that much damage. They're not as scary in the sense as they used to be. They certainly do offer the control, and that is very nice throughout a teamfight engagement. Some good micro from pro players can definitely make the Brewmaster effective enough to warrant a ban, but yeah, it's arguable, as you mentioned, that he warrants a first phase ban. But either way, Troll coming into favor quite a bit recently, as you mentioned, and that battle trance as well as the mischance from Whirling Axe is often underestimated, and he offers quite a bit towards the team, even in terms of the global presence and the ability to accelerate a split push. So yeah, I definitely think the Scary Faces Troll ban is warranted here. LC, as you mentioned, picking up that one position Viper, perhaps he goes to the mid as well, but pretty throwback support combo here from Scary Faces. They're going to pick up the Skywrath ES.
I saw this one a hell of a lot back in 6.81. Hell, when I was casting on LAN at the Assembly, this combination was pretty much every single game without fail. Long Range Initiation couples up very nicely with the Ancient Seal and Mystic Flare. I do like this combination, and it does show that they want to be a bit more aggressive than they would otherwise normally be.
Yeah, definitely a nice roaming combo, and the long range of initiation and counter initiation is nice there from the Earthshaker. If he's able to get up a timely blink, I do worry somewhat for LC, but already building fairly tankily throughout their draft. They've picked up Viper, Jakiro. Jakiro, one of the more tanky intelligence heroes in the game in terms of base HP pool, also helps with the push, so perhaps Scary Faces definitely in their draft or in their bans looking to take out what is an oftenly run strategy from LC, in the sense that they are looking to push here with that liquid fire. Viper also pretty decent at pushing with the nether toxin later on in the game, so definitely taking out the troll is a wise ban from them. But we will see a Bloodseeker ban from LC, interestingly enough. This is something Quista and Shadowway both run on Scary Faces from time to time, but it's not the most common pickup ban. They will also ban the DP, so that's something that's seen a little bit more frequently.
The ban on the Bloodseeker, I can to an extent understand. If they're going to go with a very push-heavy strategy, say with a Jakiro, and more importantly a Pugna isn't exactly the fastest hero. He will normally get caught within a Blood Right because he doesn't have that move speed and his turn rate isn't stellar on a Pugna. So if they're trying to set up for a Pugna, yeah, certainly, I understand a Bloodseeker ban, hands down, but that's a pretty damn big if. Still, you're up against a Skywrath Mage and an Earthshaker. Pugna would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely so. We're going to ban some of the sustain and tankiness here from Scary Faces. Aphotic Shield, pretty darn good.
Aphotic Shield is pretty damn good against tankier lineups and burst lineups, but in this case, we're going to get a Broodmother for Scary Faces, which, again, does leave that susceptibility to things like Nether Blast with the Pugna. It's looking all the more likely that we'll see that for London Conspiracy. But it does mean you're going to have to warrant mass sentries, some way to deal with this brood, and mainly keeping an eye on her. Because if a Broodmother's left alone, I think we all know how painful that can be from playing up against it or having one on your team. But London Conspiracy will answer with the Rubik, and that can deal with a couple of the Spiderlings and try to deal with the control that Scary Faces currently have.
Yeah, interesting to pick a Brood into the Jakiro, as well as the Fade Bolt, as you mentioned, is there to deal with those Spiderlings. But Broodmother should have a good time creating a lot of space and forcing LC to commit over to her lane, and that will somewhat stave off the ability for them to push, as the Broodmother will be looking to force a lot of commitment her way. In that sense, we'll also be able to space create for the Medusa with the roaming Earthshaker Skywrath Mage combo. So Scary Faces looking for that insurance policy into the late game. And LC going to respond with that Rubik pick, so definitely some nice things to steal thus far.
Indeed, I mean, you've got the Stone Gaze, you've got Fissure, which I think is one of the most important, and Ancient Seal. All three very good spells to grab. And I think if I were London Conspiracy right here, I would 90% of the time currently want to have Fissure stolen by the Earthshaker. It's just going to be so useful in dealing with Spiderlings, having an instant cast Fissure with that 0.01 second cast point for any stolen spell, as well as just blocking off Earthshaker, dealing with Skywrath Mage. It's just a nice way to deal with things. Yeah,
that cast animation is absolutely incredible for Rubik, especially with something like the Fissure Earthshaker. Certainly can be interrupted, especially by heroes like the Clockwork, but you're going to pick up a little bit of a hero that's fallen out of favor here for LC in the Ogre Magi. This probably indicates that the Jakiro will be played in a core role, and at this point you would expect that offlane Jakiro, just because there's not enough right-click, it seems, to scale well enough for LC. Perhaps they go for that AM in the 5th pick. Of course, Bloodlust does synergize very well with the Anti-Mage. Anti-Mage pretty damn good against the Medusa, but a lot of cores still available to them regardless. Ogre, Rubik, pretty good support combo in the sense of zoning, as well as the Roam. Rubik generally not considered the strongest lane support, but with the Ogre definitely won't be able to take the brunt of what Scary Faces is able to offer.
Yeah, I'll agree to that, but this is something that I'll consider for London Conspiracy. I think they were setting up for a style of push, but then they saw Scary Faces, Broodmother, and Medusa and thought, okay, how do we transition this? Mid-Viper, offlane Jakiro core, Ogre Magi Rubik support, and as you did call it, Anti-Mage, I think, will be their final pick. Anti-Mage can tear through a Medusa quicker than almost any other hero in the game.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if they round their lineup out with the AM, and it seems like a very logical pick for them. Scary Faces perhaps looking for the safe lane position if they put Medusa in the mid. It'll be 1v1 versus a Viper, not a serious advantage for the Viper there once the Medusa gets up the mana shield. She's also got the Mystic Snake, so not too much spam coming out from the orb effect from the Viper if she's pretty disciplined with that, and we'll see what they pick up. They're actually going to pick up their mid laner themselves, so it looks like Medusa will go towards the safe lane. Puck gonna offer them a little bit of control. It also offers Rubik a couple of nice steals as well, but the magic damage burst is gonna be invaluable against these squishier targets like the Rubik as well as the Jakiro.
And that Puck is a deterrent from an anti-mage pick. If Puck can get on top of an anti-mage and catch him with the Waning Rift, that silence can get an anti-mage killed very quickly. But I thought that there might be another hero here for London Conspiracy, and that's if they want to mess with Scary Faces a little bit. They could put that Viper in the safe lane and pick up an Outworld Devourer, but it's not going to be the case. It'll be a Timbersaw for the final pick. So is this a mid-Viper, off-lane Timber, tri-lane Jakiro? No, surely not.
It could be a pretty strong combination. They may look to go aggressive and take that tower quickly and deny some of the farm from Quista, but I would expect if there's a tri-line, it would probably be centered around this Timbersaw. Timbersaw doesn't do the best versus Puck in the mid lane. He's very good versus melee heroes, but against that range advantage of Puck as well as the phase shift probably won't be particularly effective. So I do expect the Viper to still remain in the mid lane.
Okay, I can see that. And my big worry here is, for Scary Faces, the Broodmother. How much value is she going to get out of her Spiderlings, considering Timbersaw, Rubik, Jakiro, to an extent Ogre Magi with Ignite? I don't see those Spiderlings lasting very long.
Yeah, you make a very significant point, and I mean, they are going to have to commit over to her lane, but perhaps they just run a defensive try up against what is presumably at this point an off-lane Brood. And as you mentioned, yeah, she's going to have to be hard-pressed to micro those and keep them safe. And in that sense, maybe they don't really worry for her as much. And she is going to need to have an impact in this game in order to give Quista the space to farm on their Medusa. But we'll hop in the game regardless. We will have a pause here, but let's introduce the lineups. Either way, the winners bracket winners are LC London Conspiracy. On the Radiant side, Majara going to pick up the Jakiro, C Spartan playing up on the Ogre Magi. Relax picking up the Timbersaw, Skanks on the Rubik, and finally Keys are going to pick up the Viper.
Of course, on the flip side of that coin, over for Scary Faces, you've got State 21 on that Puck, you've got Quista on the Medusa, you've got Eknart on the Skywrath Mage, Shadower on the Broodmother, I'll get there eventually, and Abash on the Earthshaker.
Yeah, so it's a good lineup, pretty stable lineup for Scary Faces, but I think really the most significant point that, as you already pointed out or alluded to, is that what is going to be the effectiveness of this Broodmother throughout the mid game. If she's not able to create space and push down some towers, farm up that Radiant jungle, then really LC's lineup is going to hit their stride early to mid game when the Timbersaw picks up his level 6, when that level 7 comes out for the Jakiro with the max liquid fire, perhaps the mech comes out for the Viper in the mid lane, and they will be able to ball up and start to pressure Scary Faces, and certainly they're going to look to take this game earlier rather than later up against this Dusa.
The later this game goes, the worse it does get for London Conspiracy, considering they are running very light on their late game cores. I mean, the Viper does okay up against this kind of lineup, but he can only really Viper strike one target, whereas the Timbersaw, he's got good burst damage, but Medusa can tank up very heavily against that. The Mana Shield does give her such a huge effective health boost.
Yeah, without an Aghanim Scepter, the Timbersaw does really have just a toolkit, and once he blows his load, he's, so to speak, he's not going to be as effective for in terms of sustained damage. So as you mentioned, Quista going to be very tanky, and that'll probably force the Viper into a damage-oriented build, and for that reason, you probably won't see an Aghanims come out, and as you mentioned, only one Viper Strike going to be able to be used, and therefore the Stone Gate is going to be pretty effective either way, even if the Medusa is slowed to a halt.
I'm just trying to run through the scenarios in my head. If Shadower can get up to a good start on that Broodmother, maybe get an early tower or two, then Scary Faces could ball a bit off that, but it does seem we are getting slightly more unusual lanes. We're going to be having a Broodmother in the mid lane, possibly, and a Puck in the off lane, which does change my thoughts of this matchup completely, because you put a Broodmother up against a Viper, the Viper can't really do anything.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't have the ability to wave clear, that's for sure. So, as you mentioned, it was going to be hard-pressed ShadowWay in this off lane, and he is the off lane player for Scary Faces. So this is kind of a last-minute decision from Scary Faces, and I'm definitely on board with it in that sense that he will be able to find some effectiveness out of those broodlings in the mid lane, and definitely more so than he would have in the off lane. How do you feel about his ability to transition into finding some lane control, however, coming out of the mid, as opposed to already being in that Radiant safe lane or Dire off lane?
Lane control wise, I suppose after the changes to Brood in the last patch, she can move around the map a bit easier, especially considering if she stacks up a max stack of webs to be deployed. So she can move around. I mean, it's not impossible anymore. But the thing with a Brood is you always want to be in the back of the opponent's mind. The opponent should always be considering, okay, where's the Brood? What's she doing? Can we stop her? If you're in the mid lane, it is easier to deal with that in the first few minutes because it's much less of a transition from, say, the roaming supports in the bot lane to mid than all the way up to the off lane to deal with them.
Yeah, and it looks like LC got wind of this. Perhaps they scouted out that puck in the river. They're going to throw their Jakiro in the mid, so Liquid Fire a little bit better to deal with the Broodlings than the Viper's toolkit. That will force the Viper to be relegated to the safe lane responsibilities, and it looks like thus far we do have lanes coming out from London Conspiracy.
The dual lanes in this case I do like the idea of, but it does sort of depend on what... how to phrase this? What Shanks can get, because if he can get the levels on the Rubik, I'm completely on board. However, if he fails to get the levels on Rubik and say has his level 6 delayed until the 7, 8 to 10 minute mark, then it's going to be very rough, since you need your Rubik to find these early levels, because without Spell Steal, Rubik is near enough nothing.
Yeah, certainly so. They will rotate the Timbersaw to the bottom, and Keezer on the Viper will go to the top. Generally, or historically at least, Stake 21 on the puck would do very well versus a dual lane, so it looks like LC will opt eventually for this aggressive tri-lane. Centered around the Viper, they'll put the Timber 1 versus 1 against the puck, and perhaps they will be able to contest the farm of the Medusa.
Well, that's something they need to do throughout this entire game. They have to contest Quizzica. How do you pronounce that again? How do you pronounce the Medusa's name?
Quista, yeah, you've got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If they can contest Quista throughout this entire one, then yes, I completely can see London Conspiracy winning this. It will all come down to disabling the Medusa in her late game. The longer they disable that late game, the better. If Medusa can get that Lincoln's, more importantly, considering Viper Strike and other things, that's a very bad mid lane. Wow, not what I expected.
Yeah, even with the sentry down, Jakiro being aggressed upon there by ShadowWay, he'll be able to bring him down for a very nice first blood for Scary Faces. And despite their lane configuration here, trying to be up against the Brood with the Jakiro as opposed to the Viper, Jakiro pretty slow early on, and with that web MS, ShadowWay able to bring him down underneath his own tower.
I suppose this is going to be a very good start for the Broodmother in this case. If ShadowWay can maintain this kind of aggression, get the Spiderlings going, not let Madara get the Liquid Fire onto the Spiderlings or the Breathe Fire, then that's going to completely help out. I mean, if denying the Spiderlings gold to the Jakiro is going to be huge, and just look how aggressive you can be with the Broodmother. Just look, he's beating on it. There's no way to stop this, and one more set of right clicks from all the Spiderlings and the Broodmother will clean it up. This is such an easy lane for ShadowWay now. He's got that level advantage.
Yeah, ShadowWay having a wonderful time in the mid, as you mentioned. The Jakiro not opting for any points in the disable, looking to level up that dual breath in order for the tick to bring down those Spiderlings, but unfortunately they're not able to drop an ice path as he wasn't able to skill it under the trees, and ShadowWay just walks over him for an easy kill. There will be a TP bot lane from Madara. Are they sacking this mid lane for the moment? Perhaps they rotate over Relax on this Timbersaw. He has one level into the Whirling Death, so perhaps a little bit better suited to deal with this Broodling.
Yeah, I can certainly see rotating a Timbersaw to deal with it right now, but the Timbersaw is still pretty damn squishy. He only has one level in the reactive armor, so that's going to be something to keep in mind throughout this entire one, and he has opted for a more side lane build with the more points in Timber Chain. Considering mid lane Timber Chain, you do lose quite a bit of effectiveness considering no trees around, but now comes the rotation. ShadowWay in a lot of trouble. They do catch him with a Whirling Death, but can he escape this one? He should be able to. Once he's outside of range of that sentry, he should be golden.
Yep, Chain is going to whiff. A little bit of a blind shot there, but just to pick up the rune as well from Relax. ShadowWay able to cliff and walk back down to the mid lane, so a lot committed there. We won't see any aggression onto Keezer's Viper, however, from the tri-lane as the supports were absent. But either way, Skanks and the Ogre Magi for C Spartan out of lane momentarily, and they don't find any fruit from it. I have a little bit of lag in this.
Let's go for the initiation onto Keezer. You dropped out there, your mic cut out, and now we get the Ignite to go forward. Quista going to be the one to rotate on. Can they bring him down? A couple of right clicks might seal the deal. He's got that a mana shield up, but it is nowhere near enough mitigation at this point. They lose the Medusa, and now they may lose Eknart, but Eknart will get the counter kill onto the Rubik. The Fisher block does come in to protect the Skywrath Mage, so it'll be a 1-for-1 in this top lane.
Yeah, definitely a win for LC, but nice return kill found there by Eknart on to the Rubik. State 21 taking quite a bit of harass here. Bot lane from Madara. He's going to take the macro part to the face, and that'll take him down. And Madara going to find some momentum after a very poor start in that mid lane. Takes down State 21. However, he does have his bottle already. No boots, though. And the boots advantage proving too much to overcome for the puck in the off lane.
I do quite like in the mid lane we've got ShadowWay. He's just continuing to harass with the spawn spiderlings. He's got the extra levels there, so this should be quite good for him. I'm unsure on a build though, but he's going max spiderlings, max webs. No point in the incapacitating bite, which does give you such a large ability to chase, and no points in the insatiable hunger either, which can turn you into such a big right-clicking machine, such an early point in the game as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very common build when you are running in the off lane. State 21 getting pretty low, but with the orb, he'll finish off Madara, and that's a nice return kill, revenge kill for State 21. He'll pick up his boots with that, so doing very well at level 7, at least in terms of levels in the off lane. Not amazingly in terms of farm, but definitely not something you expect from your off laner. But yeah, as you mentioned, the build, a little bit unorthodox from ShadowWay. This is a lot more common when you are in a side lane, but either way, looking for that big nuke damage early on, and perhaps thinking that Relax isn't as chaseable as the Jakiro with the Timber Chain available to him.
I don't know. The Timber Chain does give him some space, but it's still low levels. It's still low distance. ShadowWay can continue to go very aggressive. He can spam this spawn spiderlings endlessly. I was just wondering if he would drop 1 point in the webs just so he can get incapacitating bite, because if he could have chased the Timbersaw there a little bit safer, he might have even gotten the kill.
Yeah, two supports going down simultaneously top. That will be Skanks and Eknart, 1-for-1 in the tri-lane, but it's going to stave off any aggression for the time being. Quista still farming decently. He's picked up 13 last hits, but according to his laning equivalent currently in the Jakiro, Madara doing a lot better, albeit he did start in that mid lane. ShadowWay is going to wrap down on Relax. He's going to chain up to the high ground. Is he going to look to dive this tower? He will not, but he may find the Courier here. Courier did deliver the item, but ShadowWay not able to bring it down, and the Chakram actually doing quite a bit of damage to him. He'll have to back off for the time being. Meanwhile, State 21's diving bottom onto Madara. He's going to catch a dual breath in the face, but Orb will be there. He can jaunt forward, one more right click, and Madara gonna fall here. Nice pursuit by State 21.
A good kill there, but mid lane we do have a bit more going on. ShadowWay does get telekinesed up, trying to do some good damage in combination with the Timbersaw. ShadowWay though should be safe behind his tower, and they just cannot keep on this spider.
Yeah, a little bit interesting with the sentry why he didn't telekinese him back to the high ground, but wanted to telekinese right into the face of Relax. However, Relax not with enough mana for that final Timber Chain, and ShadowWay able to walk it off back to base. 6-3 is your score, 8 minutes in. Scary Face's slight advantage in terms of that, but the farm is going LC's way, as we do see State 21 jaunting out bottom. He's taking down to the Ignite, however, one more clubbing, and C Spartan will bring him down. TP rotations are inbound from ShadowWay. He's going to look to chase down C Spartan, but the Ice Path is there with the Macro Pyre as well to zone away ShadowWay. ShadowWay not going to be able to find the Ogre Magi, as he is going to TP out here, and very nicely played by Madara as well as C Spartan.
Indeed, and that did force a rotation from ShadowWay, so he may opt to stay on this lane now. Does he have enough webs to go? He's got one more available, so he could look to persist down here, but if he does, I reckon they may lose their mid-tier 1. Yeah, it's going to force the TP, at least a rotation from State 21. So it does take a lot of damage on his inbound on TP, but Orb just putting some pressure on, forcing Relax to rotate away.
Yeah, perhaps there's a little bit of pressure on this tier 1 inbound top lane, but Quista actually going to think better of it, back off. No Stone Gaze available quite yet for this Medusa. She's sitting at level 5 to the level 7, 8, and 8 of the Viper, Jakiro, and Timbersaw respectively, so certainly this aggressive tri-lane has dissuaded her from her lane presence a little bit, and she is quite a bit behind for 9 minutes in the game.
Yeah, and she's going to need to recover. It's a must in this game. I suppose this is just what you need to do up against Medusa. Keep her force back, but Kaiser will find himself a kill on the Skywrath Mage. Quite an easy rotation as well, and if the cores from London Conspiracy keep picking up kills like this, it's going to be fairly nasty about 5-10 minutes down the road.
Yeah, Skywrath Earthshaker considered one of the better roaming combos in the game, but in terms of lane presence, they really only do have the momentary silence from the Skywrath, and Eknart only has the 1 point in Ancient Seal, as well as the Fisher. Mid lane, though, Coil goes out onto Madara. Ice Path is going to be there for the time being. Eknart needs one more Arcane Bolt. It's on cooldown, though. Madara will be able to fog him for the time being. Waning Rift goes out onto Sea Spartan. Meanwhile, top lane, Kaiser finding a kill, and looks like Sea Spartan may be aggressed onto. He's getting Ancient Sealed up here. Eknart going to have to rotate back, and Sea Spartan may wrap around and find the Skywrath Mage as Quista goes down as well. So overall, 2-0 thus far, and the Coil committed. LC getting a big win across the map. Sea Spartan able to walk away, but with an invisibility rune, Kaiser could be in trouble top lane, although he will rotate back for the time being. Stake 21 is there to finish off the Rubik, but perhaps not showing himself for a moment and walking up high ground would have been a little bit more beneficial for him there.
Well, the gold did go on to the Earthshaker in this case, and Abash can do quite a bit with that. He's actually opting for the Soul Ring build on the Earthshaker, but as long as we see a Blink Dagger up at some point in the foreseeable future, I don't think in the long run it'll matter all that much.
Yeah, definitely so. Madara opting to go back for this Ice Path here. He's looking to build into a Eul Scepter, so nice setup there for him. He does have that level 7 max fire, so look for them to start grouping up, perhaps off the pickup of a mech from Kaiser, and he has finished it now, and they will probably look to pressure some towers, especially where the Brood Mother is present in that bot lane, where they have 4 heroes currently.
Well, they need to deal with the Brood Mother, and, well, Shadow is just going to do what a Brood does, take the enemy jungle and just not let them have any space. It's one of the nicer things a Brood can do, just deter the enemy from farming. However, it seems it will be a full 5-man rotation for that tier 1 tower on the bottom lane. But while this is going on, there is some force coming out of the Scary Faces lineup on the top lane. They're going to try to answer this and get a tower for a tower, but their pushing power is much, much less than the London Conspiracy lineup.
Yeah, with that level 4 liquid fire, they're actually going to look to take a tier 2 here. Macropire dropped on the wave. Majara is eating into that tower, and the slowed attack speed of the tower, they're not going to be able to defend this. However, there is a glyph as well, which was popped by LC in the top lane, so the tier 1 not even down yet for them. They can even rotate for a defense, but they're actually going to opt to go high ground here. They've sent Relax over to the mid lane to stave off Stake 21 and the Brood Mother, but their tier 1 will finally go down, and there will have to be rotations back to the base now from Scary Faces. Their tier 3 already taken a quarter of its health down with this liquid fire spam, and they're still sitting high ground from London Conspiracy, only with 4 of their lineup. Jump forward though, Coil on 2, Stone Gaze is popped as well. There's a Waning Rift there, but the Ice Path is going to land on 2 with the Dual Breath. Quista ticking pretty low here. He'll get telekinesis up and dropped and brought down. And so far, the 1-0. Shadowway looking to chase down onto Skanks. He'll catch a Fire Blast in the face. However, Kaiser may be the sacrificial lamb for LC, but the Ice Path connecting once again from Madara. The Fisher will be there, however, from Abash. They will finish off the Viper. However, Madara, Liquid Fire finishes off the Earthshaker, and Relax joining the fray now, going to cut down that Skywrath Mage out of the air. And so far, 3 for 1 for Scary Faces. Also, going to find the Rubik here is Shadowway, but he'll get hit with an Ice Path, and he may fall for his insolence. He does go down here, 4 for 2 overall for Scary Faces, and only the 1 buyback available on the Brood Mother. Quista has already bought back, it seems. No, she's already respawned, but won't be able to defend up this tier 3 perhaps, as Madara does walk up the high ground spamming up that liquid fire.
This is a lot of relentless aggression coming out of London Conspiracy, and it could persist and try to go for that tier 3, but no, I think they're happy. That was a full 5-man wipe over the course of that fight. Low levels though, more causing short respawns in favor of the Scary Faces. So a 5 for 2 plus almost a full tier 3, the tier 1 and the tier 2. That's a pretty damn huge push, and you can see what it's done on graph-wise. It was in favor of Scary Faces at one point, but no, that shot up to a 2.5, 3k gold lead for the London Conspiracy, as well as a 3k experience lead. That is quite the turn of events.
Yeah, Scary Faces, I guess, learning their lesson. They're going to look to mount a defense mid on their tier 1 as they do aggress upon it from the side of LC. But they've got this mech advantage on the Viper. He's also super tanky, and the burst just isn't quite there. Eknart has finally picked up his level 6, so they do have that Mystic Flare available. Illusory Orb will be stolen by Skanks, but not the best spell to steal, although some very nice nuke damage at level 4.
If they can maintain this kind of pressure, though, I'm not sure if Scary Faces can really stay and fight this one unless they get something with this Broodmother. They need some towers, minimum, and the Broodmother's had to go for one of the more unorthodox items on her, which is a Blade Mail, instead of the Orchid. Whereas an Orchid up against London Conspiracy, it would keep that Timber Sword down, deal with the Rubik. All in all, Orchid up against London Conspiracy's lineup, I'd much prefer over a Blade Mail.
Yeah, defensive Yule's up in the top lane by Madara. Will pay, though, for his split pushing troubles, and State 21 going to be there, but the kill going to be secured by a bash. Meanwhile, with mid lane, they've left Quista. He'll be telekinesis to the bottom, and he will get 2 times multicast. He's soon to fall, but a jump forward coil on 3, and a nice illusory orb will be there. Quista will end up falling, but Keezer is going to go down as well as Skanks here. Sea Spartans rotated in. Nice enchant totem to stop the Fire Blast cast, but he will end up picking off State 21 on the puck, and despite it being a 3-for-2, LC still able to bring down the Medusa, and Madara did kind of feed over a solo kill, so everything a wash more or less in that mid lane.
Yeah, you say it's a wash. You've got to consider the level of pressure that was put onto that tier 1 of Scary Faces. They've almost lost that tier 1, and if we see another avalanche of towers on this lane, I really don't feel comfortable for Scary Faces. I suppose they did get the pick off on the Jakira on that top lane, but Madara's already rotated back to this bottom lane. He does have backup from Skanks, and if they just push in this tier 3 as well, it's going to keep the Scary Faces lineup on the back foot, and that's going to be absolutely necessary.
Yeah, definitely so. And another point to mention is that they are bringing down Quista. So aside from the pressure, they also have a couple of their core items. The mech is here, the Yules is here for the Viper and the Jakiro respectively. So certainly an even trade is somewhat of a win. Yule Scepter, Ice Path, going to go out onto State 21. The Fire Boss will hit him as well. Zoning Fisher is there. Chakram going to be a bit short, but the Fisher stolen and dropped by Skanks, and they'll pick off State 21. He does have buyback available at this point. They will have to force out the Glyph here, but not sure if they're willing to expend it. They probably should, as the Blink is available on the puck, but they are going to lose their tier 3 for free. And Keys are going to start putting some right click into this melee racks as well. They are looking to be flanked by Shadoway, but not sure he's going to be influential enough from the back lines. They will put up Madara on the high ground as the battering ram. He will get a Yule Scepter, Macropyre, Ice Path onto Quista. The Chakram is there as well as the Viper Strike. Mystic Flare will go out onto Keezer, but he will be able to mech up. They'll melt Stake 21 to a few right clicks. Shadowway looking to find Keezer, but he will have to back off as well. He's going to die here, and that's 3 down already. This could be an easy lane of racks, if not the tier 3 in mid as well.
I don't know. This doesn't really feel like patch 6.83 to me. This really feels more like patch 6.81, or the TI4 patch with the early aggression, early racks, early lanes. It's just ridiculous the level of pushing power that London Conspiracy has got away with here. And hell, they're even just losing heroes within their base. They lose the Scarf Mage, and now they're going to lose it back on that Earthshaker. The pure damage coming out of Relax is just far too high.
Yeah, the level advantage for the Timberstar. He's currently level 12. That's the highest on the board, proving a little too much to surmount here for Scary Faces. And how early it is, there's still tier 1s up in both the other lanes, so they can't transition it into a dual lane of racks. But either way, they should take this tier 1 in the mid for free. No Glyph here for Scary Faces. They can't mount a defense as they're just respawning, and they need to clear out their base. So LC gaining some serious momentum here. 7,500 net worth lead, and about the same in experience generated up to this point.
Yeah, that kind of lead is the thing you can snowball off, and they're already starting up Relentless Aggression mid-tier 1, now they're going tier 2. Pause up by Relax, hopefully everything is fine, but I can quite easily see this tier 2 going down it. But how can Scary Faces really respond to this one? Eknart's only level 7, Stake 21, sure, he's level 11, but he's really the only one doing exceptionally well other than the Broodmother. And the Broodmother opted for a Blade Mail, which I still can't see the long-running benefit of, since an Orchid, as I mentioned, would keep that Timbersaw quiet.
Yeah, without leveling up the incapacitating bite, as you mentioned before, she's not really looking to man up more, re-engage, disengage, re-engage, and find picks with that max nuke. So I really don't understand the blade mail pickup as well. The Orchid, as you mentioned, very good against a Timbersaw, and he's doing the bulk of the damage thus far for LC. And Majara is using a lot of her disable to lock down these heroes, but Relax is the hero that's finishing them off. So that Orchid certainly would have been invaluable to this point in the game. Either way, I don't know if I see a recovery mechanic for Scary Faces here. They definitely do have a potent pickoff lineup with the trio of the Puck, Skywrath, and Earthshaker, but LC staying far too grouped up to concede over any solo kills to this Scary Faces lineup.
They need to just play as a team, play as 5, keep going for objectives. If they separate, if the London Conspiracy side manage to drift apart and a single pick-off happens, that can be the comeback mechanic. Those mechanics are in the game.
Right.
A nice amount of experience and gold just to return in and just keep fighting this game in, but it's going to be rough. It is really going to be rough for Scary Faces. The thing is, they also need to defend their buildings, and the only way they can do that is with a perfect team fight. Coils into Stone Gaze, but that's not going to happen, especially when Eknar gets isolated and obliterated.
Yep, blown up is the Skywrath Mage. He's down for 25 with no buyback at this point. Buyback situation pretty grim for the Dire. Medusa the only one even close. A bash on the Earthshaker has it as well. But 50 gold still needed for Quista on this Dusa. And they're going to have to get off a very meaningful Stone Gaze in this one. Relax, chasing to the south looking for a bash. Not going to find him, but he will pick up the point booster in addition to his 9 charge Bloodstone. And he's hit absolute critical mass 19 minutes in. And definitely something to be worried about for Scary Faces.
Yeah, Scary Faces, I would be surprised if they don't GG this if they lose this tier 3 tower. They can't really defend this kind of onslaught. And even if they're slow sieging, they've got to deal with Liquid Fire. And Liquid Fire is going to burn down their buildings either way.
Yeah, and it will allow the lane to be up quite a bit as well, slowing down that attack speed. But the Yule's up onto Quista. Ice Path Macropyre will be there. Big coil from State 21, but he's going to melt quickly. Going to have to phase shift and back off. He gets off a nice orb, but everyone's still very healthy from LC with the mech. Echo Slam is going to hit on 2 from a bash, but he's going to pay with his life, and still no one down from the side of LC. Quista dropping very low. Chakram going to finish off Eknard in the multicast, bringing down Quista. Only 1 buyback available. That is the Earthshaker, and the GG will be called. LC continuing their dominance in SLTV ProSeries 11.
Yeah, quite a show of force coming out of them. But of course, there is another game. I believe if London Conspiracy win the next game, they will win the full best of 5.
Yep, that 1 game winner's bracket advantage going the way of LC. We are HeflaTV, your English coverage, guys. That was game 1. So in the series, 2-0 for LC, and they'll look to translate this momentum into a quick game 3 win, and that will be the end of Scary Faces. But we'll see if they're able to recover in this game 2. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll be back shortly with the second of 5 games.